Hello, everyone. My name is Marcus Stewart, and I will be bringing this episode of Marcus Talks About Games directly to you. Today, I will be talking about the new Nintendo Direct and reacting to all of its announcements, which include Super Mario Maker 2 and a remake of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Please take a look. Hello. My name is Marcus Stewart, and welcome to Marcus Talks About Games, Episode 6, the only show in all of podcasting where you can hear a man named Marcus Stewart talk about video games. I'm pretty sure that's the case. If I'm wrong, don't point it out. Just let me believe that. Please, let me have this. Let me have this. How the hell are you, listeners? I hope you're having a great day. I certainly am. It's an exciting time right now. We are in the thick of February, which has been a very big release month. A lot of games came out this past Friday. A lot of big marquee titles. We've got Jump Force out in the wild, which, at least from what I'm hearing, is kind of okay, sort of. Well, we have Far Cry New Dawn making headlines for being kind of okay, I guess, ish. Crackdown 3 is out. I think people are happy, sort of, with that. And we have Metro Exodus, which people do seem to be pretty happy with. I haven't played either of them yet. I'm actually waiting for my Xbox One X, which I recently purchased, to come in the mail, and I will be playing Metro Exodus on that, as well as Crackdown 3. So maybe by this time next week I'll be able to touch on those two games in detail, but for now, it seems that the one of the biggest release days I can remember in some time, with those four big games dropping on the same day, is kind of a little bit of a flop, a little bit of a letdown, so to speak. At least the general consensus. Obviously, I'm sure there's people that think Jump Force is the best game ever, or that Far Cry New Dawn is the best Far Cry game to ever have come out. But it didn't seem to be the most exciting day if you are someone that follows game reviews, I guess. You know what is exciting, though, was this past week's Nintendo Direct. We got a 35-minute Nintendo Direct that spilled quite a bit of news. A lot of really exciting news, some big surprises in there. And I love Nintendo Directs. I think they're a really cool way to sprinkle really cool announcements throughout the year instead of waiting for maybe one or two big shows like E3 to roll out some big announcements. Nintendo has kind of perfected the idea or the concept of like a pre-recorded kind of press release, basically. Yeah, I never fail to get excited, even for like the lesser directs or the directs that might be focused on one particular game. I just always I can't help but get a little bit of like, ooh. Like, that's my reaction usually, is like, ooh, okay, like, it's like Christmas almost. It's like getting little Christmases throughout the year as opposed to one big Christmas. And this one was one of the bigger directs in some time. So I've got the list of announcements that came from it. I actually rewatched the direct again to kind of refresh myself. And yeah, I'm just going to go through everything that I kind of went in chronological order of the announcements. So strap in, because I am bringing my reactions to the Nintendo Direct directly to you. And if you're a Nintendo fan, you could probably guess that I actually did do the old Iwata hands to face square motion that he used to do back when he hosted these things. Rest in peace, Iwata. So, the Direct kicked off in a big way by revealing Super Mario Maker 2 for the Switch. And when the trailer started, I first thought it was just going to be a port of Super Mario Maker to Switch, like a reworked version of that game, just because that's kind of been the trend for Switch games, is just kind of just porting over Wii U games. And that, along with like Pikmin 3 and Super Mario 3D World, those are kind of the last big holdouts in terms of Wii U games good enough to be ported to Switch. But no, this is a full-blown sequel, reworked for a single screen, it looks like, which I'm interested to see how that works. Super Mario Maker 1 was one of the few Wii U games that actually made like a real use of the gamepad as a separate screen. So it looked like they had some UI changes to make it all work on one screen. One of the big additions for this game is that there's a Super Mario 3D World skin. Because if you remember in the previous Mario Maker, you could, when you're building your Mario levels, you could design them to either have Mario Brothers 1 aesthetic, Super Mario Brothers World, or Super Mario World, I should say, as well as new Super Mario Brothers, like the 3D graphics. And those are still in there, but now there's a Mario 3D World look. And the game itself doesn't become 3D, like you're not designing an actual 3D Mario game. It's just that look, like you have the cat suits, which I believe is the first time that that's ever been in 2D. I can't remember if there were any like 2D sections in Mario 3D World. It's been a long time, but I think that's kind of cool. I think Super Mario 3D World is a really underappreciated Mario game. One, because it came out on a system that maybe 6 people owned, and also because it was very much its own style, like that and its predecessor, Super Mario 3D Land, which was one of the launch titles for the 3DS way back. It's very much its own style of Mario, because it's a 3D Mario game, but it has kind of a isometric camera angle, and it's like an amalgamation of the 3D and 2D styles of gameplay, because it's 3D, but it's got the 2D like health system, like you know, it's the traditional, like you grab a mushroom and you get bigger, and if you get hit, you shrink again, so 2 hits and you're dead. So unlike the other 3D Mario games, you don't have like a life bar. And I love both of those games, but for some reason, among Mario fans, it feels like, not that they're disliked, but I remember before Mario Odyssey came out, there was always the pushback, like, why haven't Nintendo made a new 3D Mario game since Mario Galaxy? And I would always think, like, we got Mario 3D World. That's literally a 3D Mario game that's on consoles. Why does that not count? For some reason, there's some sections of the fans that don't count that, and I've never understood that. So I like that it's getting a bit of a shout out here. It got like a small little reference in Super Mario Odyssey, because there would be like the pixelated cat suit characters that you could find like on the walls. But other than that, the game has always seemed really forgotten. Like the cat suit is one of the most kind of forgotten power-ups, which is funny because at the time they were promoting the hell out of it. In a rather silly way, by having all the Nintendo PR people wear like the cat gloves and ears. I was working at GameStop at the time when the game released, and we got like the cat ears, and I remember wearing them the day that it launched, the entire day at work, and I still have them in a box somewhere. And I had looked really silly, but it was a fun silly. They're blue. I should bust those out. I should dig up those cat ears. Maybe I'll wear them again while I'm playing this game, make it a Mario 3D World level. But this is super cool. I never got to play much of the first Mario Maker. I never had it. The only time I ever did really touch it, actually, was when I was interning at Game Informer. I was part of the 24-hour Extra Life stream. This was back in 2015, if you want to go look it up on YouTube. And we had a Mario Maker segment, because that was the year that Mario Maker came out and was like the hottest thing in the world. And I think what we did was we had a bunch of readers send in like their Mario Maker codes, and we played their levels on air. And I got to play like 1 or 2 of them, and I think that's like the only time I ever really touched a game. I've never touched the editor. I've only played other people's levels, so never got to make my own level in the game. And I wanted to buy that 3DS version, but then there was the issue that you couldn't share levels in the same way. Like, you couldn't share or download levels online. At least not in the same way that you could on the console version. On the 3DS version, you could only do it locally, which to me was a deal breaker, because that was the entire appeal of the game, was being able to download and share levels with the world, not people that have to be right next to me with a 3DS that have a copy on the game. So I never picked that one up. So I'm hoping that this version does not make that same mistake. I would imagine it wouldn't. But I'm super excited for this. It's cool to see that they're revisiting that game. My only complaint is that it's got the number 2 in front of it, and they didn't add like a Mario Brothers 2 skin. And yes, I know that game is very, very different. You pretty much would have to add like a Doki Doki Panic assets to it, and Mario 2 even just like design wise and physics wise, because it has to account for 4 playable characters as opposed to 1. It will probably be hard to just generalize it to fit every style of play, but it would have been at least cool to maybe get like just the look of Mario 2 and some of the like items and enemies in there just for fun. So that's the only thing I'm kind of bummed out about, even though it wasn't like, it probably wasn't any chance in hell that was going to happen. Regardless, the game launches in June, which is actually a trend for a lot of these games coming out. They all launch like in the summer or this year, which kind of sticks with Nintendo's trend of, I remember reading an interview where Reggie Fils-Aimé said that they generally don't trot out games that aren't like 6 months away from release, like something like that, which is one of the reasons why we never saw Metroid for a long time after it was announced. And I guess Metroid was one of the rare exceptions where they were like, we'll let people in on this even though it's not coming in anytime soon. So, but June 2019, only a few months away. Super Mario Maker 2. Look for it. Looks cool. Next up, we got a trailer for Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order, coming this summer as well. We first saw this game when it premiered at the Game Awards, and this was our first real, like, I don't want to say in-depth because it wasn't, like, super in-depth, but there was a little bit more to it. We got to learn about, like, the team-up attacks that you can do in a game, which is a thing that was in, like, the original Marvel Ultimate Alliance and X-Men Legends before it. I'm a huge fan of those games. I loved X-Men Legends 1 and 2 to death. 1 being a huge X-Men fan and a Marvel fan in general. I like comic book stuff. And also I just love like cooperative games. And those games were probably... No, not even probably. It would have to have been the first like Diablo style like games I've ever played. I've mentioned before in the past episodes that I'm playing Diablo 3 for the first time, which is the first time I've ever played Diablo in general. And I love the game, and I think a lot of that in a kind of a backwards way is attributed to falling in love with X-Men Legends and Marvel Ultimate Alliance. X-Men Legends, of course, PS2, those games came out, developed by Raven Software, I believe, if I remember correctly. And then Marvel Ultimate Alliance was one of the early games of the PS3 and Xbox 360 generation. And those were by the same team. They're kind of like spiritual follow-ups where instead of just X-Men, why not just bring in the entire universe? And I love that first game to death. I didn't play too much of Ultimate Alliance 2, but I remember thinking it was okay. Like, it wasn't, at least to me, it wasn't as good as that first game. I think that Ultimate Alliance 1 is the peak of those games, like all 4 of those games. But Ultimate Alliance 3, it looks good. I'm a little bit nervous that that Team Ninja's doing it. Not that Team Ninja's a bad team. I think it's more like this seems so outside of their wheelhouse from what they normally do. Of course, Team Ninja is, best known for the 3D Ninja Gaiden games, which I love. And they've also did Metroid Other M. That was Team Ninja, right? Yeah, that totally was. Which was not what a lot of people would consider a great Metroid game. And I'm trying to think. Most recently, I think they also had they were involved in Nioh, which I do like. I think Nioh is a great game. Of course, Nioh is the samurai kind of Dark Souls game. Came out about 2 years ago now. But yeah, this seems like a weird type of game. Not even just for the license, but just the style. Just like 4-player top-down dungeon crawling. Though they've added a new camera angle where I forget what it's called. I think it's called like Hero's View or something like that, where you can switch to like a behind a shoulder view, and it's a like more intimate look at the action. If you've seen the trailers, a lot of the combat has been filmed using that view, which looks nice. I want to play it to see how it feels, because I'm wondering like if you're playing co-op, how that if that's better or worse for like view wise, for seeing just where everyone's at. and if the level design kind of accommodates for that view, if it makes things easier to, if you can see things like puzzle elements or whatever easier in that view, or do you have to keep switching like between the top down view and the hero's view, which you can do on the fly from what I understand. So that's an interesting little twist. I'm also somewhat, I want to see the rest of the roster. Like the graphical style, kind of that cell shaded style, looks fine like those other games, or at least X-Men Legends 1 and 2 had a cell shaded style, and then Marvel Ultimate Alliance had a more kind of traditional, just polygonal look, I guess. Realistic look for, in air quotes. But I think I'm a little worried about like the roster. I think that fear comes from Marvel Ultimate, or excuse me, from Marvel versus Capcom Infinite. If it's more Marvel Cinematic Universe based instead of Marvel Comics based, of course that this game's already doing a better job because it has Wolverine in it, and Wolverine as of yet is not part of the MCU. And I think there's a couple other characters like I can't remember off the top of my head who else is in it. They announced Captain Marvel in this trailer, which makes sense given that her film is very soon. But I just want to see the rest of the roster. Like I want to see some deep cuts, because that's what was the cool thing about Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2 is that they had some deep cuts in there, or like Blade. I think Punisher was in one of them, Moon Knight. Like I want to see those guys so that it feels like a real celebration of that comic, and not just, oh, the people that you've seen in the movies and maybe the Netflix shows or something like that. So here's hoping that they can nail it on the roster front. But that game looks great. I'm excited to see the series come back. I really hope that Team Ninja pulls this off. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to do otherwise, other than maybe just come on this show and just be like, oh man, they done ruined the Ultimate Alliance, man. They done messed that up, man. That's my disappointed at video games voice, I guess now as but yeah, that game comes out, I know it's this year. I think it's the summer as well. I think it's got like a vague summer 2019 date. Anyways, moving on. Dragon Quest XI S comes to the Switch this fall, not this summer, and it's basically an enhanced version of Dragon Quest XI. I haven't played Dragon Quest XI yet. In fact, the only Dragon Quest game I've ever played was Dragon Quest VIII: Journey of the Cursed King on PlayStation 2, which I liked a lot. I beat that game. It was really hard, and the very old school design, which all those games pretty much are. And I've always wanted to play other Dragon Quest games since then, but I never get to them for one reason or another. So, but 11 is one I will probably be the one that I finally, that's the game that's going to get me back into that series. So I want to see how the Switch version falls out. That'll probably be the one I buy, as opposed to playing on PS4, because it comes with, some improvements to it. It's got the cool, you can switch between the normal 3D style graphics. It can also switch to like an old school 16-bit aesthetic and play the game like that, which originally, if I remember correctly, when this game first released in Japan, they have a 3DS version of this game that we never got. And on the 3DS version, the top screen would be the normal 3D style, but then the second screen would have the same thing that's happening on the top screen, but in a 16-bit style. So they were pretty much bringing that feature over to the Switch version that the original PlayStation 4 version does not have, at least not yet. That's kind of the big question, is if they'll eventually patch in those changes and upgrades from this Switch version into the already available versions. But you can switch between Japanese and English voice acting, and there's like new orchestrated music when you're like running around in open fields and like in the battles and stuff like that. So this seems like the one. Like if you haven't played Dragon Quest XI yet and you have a Switch, or like if you have the choice between playing on Switch and the like PS4, this seems like the one to go with. So like I said, it comes this fall. If you're a JRPG fan, Dragon Quest fan, this seems like a no-brainer. Kind of keeping with the Dragon Quest announcements, Dragon Quest Builders 2 releases this July. I've only played the demo of Dragon Quest Builders 1, and I love the hell out of that. I thought the game was charming as hell and just goofy. Just the premise that you were like this master builder in this world where humanity has had the general concept of construction stripped away from them, and you're pretty much having to re-educate the masses on like, hey, if you put two things together you can make another new thing out of that. I just thought that was really funny, and the game was very self-aware at how silly that was. And I've always meant to buy it on like PS4, and it'll probably be on Switch that I buy it. It's been on my Switch wish list for some time. But the sequel comes out in July. It looks to be a bit more the same, though you can play with other people now, which I'm not sure if you could do in the first game or not. I don't remember. There's also no word if this is only coming to Switch or if it's coming to other consoles. That wasn't clear. I would imagine it would, right? Because the other games were on other consoles, but then again, stranger things have happened. Let's see here. Captain Toad, Treasure Tracker, one of my all-time favorite Wii U games. I've gone to bat for this game a lot of times, especially if you know me personally and have listened to me talk about it. I love this game quite a bit. It's one of my favorite, just kind of gems on the Wii U. That's getting some DLC for the Switch version. Both some of it's free, some of it's paid. It's getting like a cooperative mode and a bunch of new stages, it's really cool to see that game getting just new content, given that it's like, God, like 4 years old. Captain Toad 1 was 2015, right? That sounds about right. We'll say like 3 years old. But it's getting a bunch of new challenges, some new courses, and like I said, the co-op mode. And I think some of that is available right now, and then the rest of it's coming in March. March 14th, actually. I have the date in front of me. I've said it before and I said it again. If you missed out on Captain Toad on Wii U, if you have a Switch or a 3DS, because the game is also on 3DS, you should absolutely go out of your way and play it. It is a very fun and very charming and relaxing, actually, puzzle game. And there's really nothing else quite like it out there. It's really one of those, I think it's one of the best hidden gems of any console in like the past 5 or 6 years. So support that game so that we can get a full-fledged sequel. Let's see here. Next up, Square Enix announced a new RPG from the JRPG Factory, or RPG Factory, whatever that developer's called Oninaki, which is made by the same studio that made I Am Setsuna and Lost Sphere. And this seems to be kind of in the same vein of those games in terms of being a throwback to the RPGs of yesteryear. Though this one looks a bit more action focused. It didn't seem, at least in the gameplay, it didn't seem turn based. It seemed like kind of more of an action RPG, but still kind of having the aesthetic of a classic JRPG, albeit with 3D graphics, of course. I have not played Lost Sphere or I Am Setsuna. I've heard middling things about them. They seem to be the general idea I get from those games, like, oh, you know, these are definitely, they definitely nail the era that they're channeling, but other than that, they don't offer much new in terms of gameplay or ideas, other than being, hey, remember this? This is what RPGs used to be like. We did one of those again, but it looks nicer, arguably, which for me is not enough of a sell. Like, I need something like a like Bravely Default, for example. I played all of Bravely Default, and I think that game is generally pretty good, even though the last third of it is really tedious and ridiculous. But other than that, I think it's a good game because it captures that feel of an old school JRPG, but it has a genuinely new and inventive battle mechanic. The same kind of applies to Octopath Traveler. And I Am Setsuna and Lost Sphere, I've played a bit of both, and they just didn't hit me that same way. It just felt like, oh, I'm doing this thing that I've done a bunch of times, but just a modern one of these. And given how long those kind of games are, and how I have like less and less time to devote to like big games like that, I'm a bit more selective about what I play. So those just weren't enough to make me want to invest the time in them. So I'm hoping this one does, because this is the first time I've kind of looked at like Tokyo RPG Factory. I think that's the name of the developer. And kind of raised an eyebrow watching this trailer. Like, okay, like this looks like it could be neat. I'm hoping that this is the one that kind of grabs me and pulls me in. You're if I remember correctly, you're kind of as this cool mechanic where you're switching between worlds. You're switching between the world of the living and the world of the dead. So it's almost kind of got like a Zelda vibe, like going between the light and dark worlds. And I think you're just going around just trying to rescue souls, something like that. Had a pretty cool looking trailer. Comes out in the summer. I hope it's good. I know that's a very PC answer, but I hope all games are good. I don't want any game to suck. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I hope this bombs. Wouldn't it be great if all games were just fantastic? If every game that came out was just a 10 out of 10, everything's the game of the year, everybody gets a trophy, participation trophies for everyone. Maybe it wouldn't be as great when I put it like that. Anyways, let's see. There's some Rune Factory stuff. Rune Factory 4 is getting remastered for Switch, and then they teased that Rune Factory 5. Or not even teased, they straight up said Rune Factory 5 is coming, but other than showing a logo, that's all they had to say about that. I have no history with Rune Factory, never played any of them, barely know what they're about, so I got nothing else to say about that, but cool if you're a fan of that series. Demon X Machina, or Demon Cross Machina, or maybe it's just Demon Machina. I don't know. But regardless of what it is, it's coming this summer, and you can play it right now because they released a demo, or at least you might be able to play it still. Because I fired up that demo and it said like, "Hey, this is a limited thing. It's not going to be around forever." It didn't. I don't remember what the expiration date on that was, but if you haven't played it and you're listening to this, you should probably fire up the eShop and get it if you're interested in this game, just to be safe. Of course, this is like the mech piloting game. You're hopping a giant robot and you're flying around shooting up demons and doing cool Gundam crap, basically. I played half of the demo and I thought it was okay. Like nothing blew me away, but I didn't think anything was necessarily bad. There were some things like concepts that are introduced because you're pretty much playing like the opening hour or so of that game. So you do like a tutorial and you make your character, which I think is neat. I made my character look more or less as close as I could to like, I gave him kind of like Super Saiyan 4 Goku appearance, like facially, like I gave him the eyes and like the hair and stuff like that, or at least the best I could. I don't know why, I just kind of stumbled upon it and just thought that would be a cool look for my guy. And I gave him the coolest name that's just totally not cliche at all. It was Rex, but with 2 X's. So that's how you know he's a bad dude. Because, one X is enough to spell Rex. So when you add the extra X, it makes you wonder, like, holy crap, like this guy doesn't go halfway. Like he when it comes to 1 out of 10, he always jumps to 11, maybe even 12. So I hope you guys appreciate the effort and the coolness that Rex with 2 X's brings to the table. And I got my mech that I painted red with just a little bit of blue, just some like blue highlights, but like a dark blue. I didn't want it to look like, I didn't want it to look too much like Spider-Man, but like it was like a nod to Spider-Man. And I went around and shot up some flying drones and tanks and had a decent time with it. The environments look pretty bland, but the other robots look relatively cool. I think the cell shading looks decent, but I kind of coming in a post Dragon Ball Fighters world, which has excellent cell shading. That's going to be kind of hard to top for a while if you're going to do games in that style. But the flying around and just the general movement and just doing things felt good, and I feel like there could be a good game there. I just need to see how the systems it introduces and just how the mission design plays out. Because at least the missions that I played were just kind of like, go in there, murder everybody. They had some cool like emergent stuff, like you thought. I played one mission where I thought it was over, and then they're like, oh no, these giant mechs called Immortals just randomly showed up. But then like these 2 hero guys that are on your squad that are like legends come in and just kick their ass after you spent time fighting them to no avail. Unpredictable stuff like that seems pretty cool. But I want to see. That's going to be kind of a wait and see for me. I would like something like that to get into. I don't really generally play mech games, so I would like something to kind of make me branch out a little bit. Maybe dip my toe into something that I wouldn't normally play. So yeah, Daemon X Machina, which is spelled Daemon. So it's like Damon, basically. Matt Damon X Machina. I would play that. I want that, actually. I want Matt Damon X Machina. It's Matt Damon in a mech, but he's trapped on Mars. And Mars is also located in World War II Europe, and he's trapped there as well. And you gotta, try to make friends with your mech because it crashed there, and you spend the whole game trying to repair the mech so that you can escape Mars Europe. Yes. Speaking of Fire Emblem Three Houses, in a segue, desperate to get away from that terrible joke, we got our first real kind of in-depth look at that game, which arrives in July 26th to be exact. And this game is basically Harry Potter, but with Fire Emblem, which I like both of those things, so that's cool. You play as a teacher who you're teaching one of three different houses which you can choose from, and each house has their own, like, I'm trying not to say headmaster, but that's basically what they are. I guess they're generals, maybe technically, but and they kind of all their own individual backstories and histories. But you're choosing one of these houses, and you train your students, who your students are basically your army in this Fire Emblem. And you're teaching them, like, how to fight and how to do magic and training them up. And, they can form relationships and get better, like in other Fire Emblems, especially the more recent ones. And they could die, which seems kind of dark in a way that you're sitting. I mean, it's not like anything new, but just the idea of, like, I'm the teacher of these basically kids, and I'm sending them off to war, and some of them might not come back depending on whether or not I'm a good leader. That's pretty dark, but it's an interesting idea. It's a very unique take on that series, the whole school aspect of it. Other than that, the game itself, like gameplay wise, looks like traditional Fire Emblem, which for a platform like the Switch is A-okay with me. That's the perfect kind of game for that platform. And I hope all of it comes together. I hope that the at least I guess I'm not so much worried about the gameplay. I hope that the story stuff is cool. Granted, I don't really play Fire Emblem for the plot. I kind of don't care much. I just play it more for just the duel, just for strategy. I want to feel like a competent and dare I say, brilliant general. Just the mind of Patton. General Patton, of course. Played by Hugh Jackman. Or not Hugh Jackman, Gene Hackman. Hugh Jackman and Gene Hackman. They sound the same. So you get them mixed up. Gene Hackman, Hugh Jackman. Imagine, it's too bad Gene Hackman's retired. Like, imagine if they were in a movie together and that was like the poster. Like, if it was like a movie where they were opponents and you just had their last names, it's like Jackman versus Hackman. Gene Hackman, Hugh Jackman. Oh man, somebody out there that's listening to this, you need to make that poster, just a mock-up of those two standing face to face like it's a MMA fight, and all you see is like Jackman versus Hackman. This Sunday, live on pay-per-view. Anyways, neither of those two will be in this game, which I guess I'm less interested in now. I want those two games in Fire Emblem. I want them to be two of my students. They're a little old, but they say you're never too old to go back to school, so maybe that'll be DLC if Nintendo can make a few phone calls, pull some strings, make it happen. But regardless, like I said, Fire Emblem Three Houses, July 29th, looks to be a hopefully fun twist on a long-running formula. A bunch of Final Fantasy games. Old Final Fantasy games, I should say. Well, mostly old, and then one new one got release dates that are coming to Switch. Final Fantasy VII is coming to Switch on the 26th. Final Fantasy IX is out right now. So if you love Final Fantasy IX and you think to yourself, man, I would love to form an emotional bond with Vivi and his really sad tale on the bus, this is your chance. And then there's that new, or I guess kind of new game, Chocobo Mystery Dungeon Everybody, that comes out on the Switch March 20th. So now officially, because it's always been weird for some fans that Cloud is in Smash Brothers despite never, like Final Fantasy VII has never appeared on the Nintendo platform. Now it makes sense. It's like retroactively, instead of waiting for a game to come to Nintendo before putting it in sub in Smash Brothers, now it's the opposite have happened. Of like the character came in Smash first, and then he made his appearance on the Nintendo platform. So now he's part of the gang. He's in the big N now. As for Final Fantasy VIII, sorry, I guess. Even now, Final Fantasy VIII still isn't getting love. For me personally, I've always thought Final Fantasy VIII was somewhat overrated. I think it's a good game, but not nearly as great as some fans think. No disrespect to you, I just that junction combat system I think is really not great, and the story kind of goes off the rails in a kind of a bad way for me after the first disc. The Ultimecia thing I think is kind of lame. But yeah, it's one I would love to know what the official explanation is from Square about Final Fantasy VIII. Just, it's like reporting all the PS1 Final Fantasies, except for that one. There's only 3 of them, not counting Tactics, which is technically its own kind of spin-off thing. Man, they should put Final Fantasy Tactics on Switch. That would be pretty good. Specifically the PSP port of it, if you're going to do it. Make that happen, Square. If you're not going to give us Final Fantasy VIII on Switch, just put Final Fantasy Tactics instead. I would play that first. Anyways, moving on. There's a new Box Boy game coming to Switch. Box Boy and Box Girl. I've only played that first Box Boy game, but I like that game. I had a lot of fun with it. I think it's cute, and I think it's a genuinely inventive puzzle game. If you ever played those games, it's actually made by HAL Laboratories, who is best known for the Kirby series. And you play as a little square box named QB, and you basically are like doing platforming puzzle things where you're making copies of yourself, like you're creating cubes that are stuck to you to try to stack them in certain ways to overcome obstacles, but you only have a limited amount of them. So it's basically figuring out how to traverse an obstacle using maybe only 4 boxes that you can spawn from yourself, and having to get creative in the way that you spawn them in order to like reach a higher platform or to cross a gap or what have you. This series seems perfect for the Switch. It seems like the perfect little kind of like fun, just little eShop puzzle game that would be a great time for passing I guess a great time for passing time on the bus. I keep using the bus as a example of places you can play on the Switch. I should change it up. The great place to pass the time on top of your rooftop party with your friends, because we all have been there before. I'm always looking for new games to pass the time during my rooftop parties, because I keep inviting Karen, who is kind of like the Eric Cartman of the group in terms of being the friend, quote unquote, who nobody really likes, but you keep hanging out with them for some reason. But then when you do hang out with them, they remind you of why you always question inviting them, because they're just being really jerky and just rubbing everyone the wrong way. And generally, no one likes to be alone with them. So Box Boy and Box Girl would be a great way to ignore Karen when I inevitably invite her to another rooftop party, despite my best judgment. You know what else would be cool to play on Switch? How about a bunch of third-party games that are on other consoles that are coming to Switch? For example, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is coming to Switch, which that is a surprising and interesting choice. Watching the trailer, the first thing I noticed was that the game definitely has a bit of a graphical downgrade, which is not surprising because on consoles, that game is a graphical powerhouse. Like the facial capture and just the presentation is absolutely stunning and one of the best aspects of that game. Looking at the trailer on Switch, and granted, maybe it's just how it looks in the trailer. Maybe it does look much better actually playing it, but even in the trailer version, I was like, it looks a little bit muddier and just less, it doesn't pop quite as much, like just a little bit less high res, we'll say. So I wonder, I just want to see like just the kind of hit that takes in it, because that if that how badly that affects that game's just that game's tone, because a lot of the game, I think it draws a lot of its emotion from those like close-up shots of Senua's face because of how realistic it looks, and you can just see every bit of emotion, like the paranoia and fear in her eyes. At least for me, like I enjoyed playing Hellblade. Even though I think it has some issues with it, I think overall it's one of those games that everyone should go out of their way to play because of how different it is and what it does in terms of utilizing mental illness as a gameplay mechanic and doing it right. In turn, it doesn't feel like it's exploitative. It's done very tactfully. But that's coming to Switch. Mortal Kombat 11 is coming to Switch, I believe. I believe it launches the same day as the other two. I might be wrong, but I think that it does. That seems cool. I could see myself buying Mortal Kombat 11 twice just to have a version that I can play anywhere. Unravel 2 coming to Switch. Seems like a good fit for that. I'm not sure if Unravel 1 is already on Switch or not. And then lastly, Dead by Daylight, which seems like a really cool game for that, especially like just the idea of being able to play with 5 friends in the same room, but with 5 switches where one player is the killer and the other players are, because that game is like a 4v1 or 5v1, I don't remember, horror game where one player is the murderer and the other players are survivors, and you're trying to, work against each other. That would be a pretty cool thing to play locally with people that have Switches, just to kind of get those live reactions, and just it just seems like that would just be a riot for like a Halloween type party or something like that. So I think that's a really cool idea. And I believe that Dead by Daylight is getting all the DLC that the console versions already have, which is a nice touch, as it always is. I'm trying to see release dates for those. Hellblade's coming sometime in the spring. Unravel 2 arrives March 22nd. And Dead by Daylight doesn't seem like it has any release window. But it is coming this year at some point. I might be wrong on Dead by Daylight, but based on what I'm looking on right now, I don't see one listed. So, other than 2019. One of the most surprising announcements was the reveal of a Tetris Battle Royale game called Tetris 99. And that seems like that would be a fantastic headline for a satire website, except that someone, I guess whoever made this beat the potential writer to the punch and just made it a real thing. But yeah, Tetris 99. It's 99 players literally playing Tetris against each other and eliminating each other. You're playing, you're matching Tetris tiles, like you're just playing Tetris, but you can attack other players by dropping like fake blocks into their game, so you're stacking them higher until they eventually brick out. And it's available now, and it's free. It became available during the Direct, so I have downloaded it, and I don't think I remember yanking my Switch out of the port as fast as I did when I saw that it's available now come across the screen. And I played a couple matches of it and got my ass handed to me both times. The first time was very late at night, and I was not all mentally there, and those are totally not excuses, but I'm just sharing it, I'm just letting you know. I'm trying to let you guys in. But that seems like a really cool thing. It's funny because I'm playing Tetris Effect right now, so it's kind of interesting and funny to me that I'm very much back into Tetris in a way that I have not been in many years. And with 2 very different types of Tetris games. But this is one of those things where you just chalk up and just like, man, that's just cool. Tetris 99, that's just cool that exists, and it's also free and available now. So I wanna play some more of it and see and get better. I want to get my second Battle Royale win ever, because the only time I've ever won Battle Royale anything was in Apex Legends, as I shared a couple weeks ago. So I would love for my next win to be in this game that I've been playing since I was, as long as I can remember, like Tetris. Like, I want to out Tetris 99 or 98 other players. So I'll definitely be trying to get some time in on that and get better. And I'll keep you guys updated on that, on my new mission in life. Hey, Undertale fans! Which would be myself too, because I think Undertale is a fantastic game. Love it. The kind of sort of sequel to it, Deltarune, is coming to Switch this month. It originally came out on PC only, I want to say like around like late last year, like fall of last year, for free. And it's, like I say, kind of a sort of sequel to it where you're, I think you're controlling the dog from the game, like, the regular dog, not like lesser or greater dog, but just like the dog. And I don't know much else to say about it because I've never played it, and the trailer is kind of vague, which is appreciated, but it just looks really goofy in that Undertale way. But it's also going to be free on Switch. It's coming to PS4 as well, again for free. But I'm excited about playing anything that Toby Fox does at this point, because again, I love Undertale, and if you've never played Undertale, that's another game that's up there with Hellblade where you should absolutely go out of your way to do so. I think it's one of the best RPGs of this generation, especially if you're a fan of Earthbound or Shin Megami Tensei. So yeah, this one comes out sometime this month. It didn't say when, but that's pretty cool. Actually, maybe it did say when. Let me see real quick. Do 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 do. Excuse me, that's my looking up a release date music, which sounds eerily like the old Wii Shop channel music. Rest in peace. Aha! It comes February 28th. I found a new release date. There you go. What a great way to end February with this. Up next was one of the coolest announcements of this Direct, is that Platinum Games is working on a brand new IP called Astral Chain. And as far as I remember, you play as a cop, like a future cop, and you're part of this police force that fights monsters that come from other dimensions that have invaded our world, and you're handcuffed to a thing called a legion, if I remember correctly, which is like this weird weapon / partner thing, and you're going around doing crazy like Devil May Cry-ish action, and it looks like a crazy Platinum game that I was super on board for watching this trailer. Like as it was playing, I was just like leaning back in my chair going like, what is this? Like, I think I barely understand what's happening here, but I am on board for all of it. And apparently it's being directed by the combat and gameplay director for Nier Automata, or Automata, however you want to pronounce it. Let's see, what was his name? Takahisa Tara. I hope I pronounced that right. But the game's also being overseen by Hideki Kamiya, of course, you know, the director of Devil May Cry and Bayonetta. And yeah, if you haven't seen the trailer for this, you should go out of your way and do so. It looks super cool. And it comes this year as well, August 30th. I love Platinum Games. I'm a huge Bayonetta and Devil May Cry fan, and I like their other stuff too, like Wonderful 101 I thought was fun, and I love Nier Automata, as weird as it gets and kind of rough around the edges it is. I think as a complete package, it is one of the most memorable and flat out bold games of this generation. And this game kind of checks a lot of the just goofy, dumb crap that I like from them. So this is one I'll absolutely be following very closely. And then finally, we get the main event of this Direct. A huge surprise too, completely out of the blue. I don't think anybody had any inkling that this was happening, but Nintendo's remaking The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for Switch. Of course, the original Link's Awakening is a Game Boy game that released in, I believe, 1993? And it was the first handheld Zelda game, and it's still to this day considered one of the best games in the entire series. It's one of my personal favorites for sure. I would probably put it in the top 5 Zeldas of all time. And then I have a history, I have an interesting history with Link's Awakening. So Link's Awakening was my first, what I would consider my first true, like, Zelda experience. Like, it was my first real introduction to Zelda. Because even though I had an NES and an SNES, I never owned, like, the original Zelda or Link to the Past. I played those later. And I had friends that had them, and I would like either watch them play or they would talk to me about it, but I never really had any real exposure personally firsthand until I had a Game Boy, the original Game Boy when I was a kid, and there was a guy in my school who had Link's Awakening, and he let me borrow it one day, and I remember being super excited, like you are when you borrow a game that you wanted to do, because one, you're excited that you didn't have to pay for this thing, and that you had a friend that was both trusting and maybe nice enough to give you their property. And I remember going home one day and firing it up and playing a bit of it and being super confused about what to do. For some reason, I don't know why, to this day, I could not wrap my head around the design and just how the game worked. And on one hand, Link's Awakening is kind of weird, even like it's one of the weirder Zeldas. It's kind of up there with Majora's Mask in terms of how bizarre it is, just the story and like the things that you're doing. But even then, it still follows like the kind of like Link to the Past formula. But for some reason, I didn't get it. I was going around, doing the Zelda stuff, and I could not compute. I think I had a different impression of what the game or what Zelda in general was supposed to be in my mind, and there's a disconnect between what I thought it would be and what it actually was. But I remember doing just, running around cutting grass and fighting things, and like I don't think I understood what a dungeon really was or anything like that. Because at the time I hadn't really played much RPGs. I was mostly playing platformers. So I just didn't get it. I just remember being just upset, like genuinely upset, like, oh, this is it? Like, this is what my friend was going on about? Like, I don't get this. What am I supposed to do here? Like, what do you do? Like, I don't get it. And I remember giving it back to him and kind of telling him that, and he seemed surprised too, like, oh, really? You didn't like it? And I was like, nah, I don't like this. And then that was my last real time playing Zelda for a while. Like, I think the next game I maybe touched was like Ocarina, but I never had an N64, so it was like, going to a friend's house and playing like the intro for a little bit. But I really didn't get into Zelda until probably like I was a late teenager and like early adult was when I finally started going through that series and beating all the games. So Link's Awakening has always had like a special place in my heart. And then, when I was an adult, I eventually went back to beat Link's Awakening and then loving it. I was like, this game is brilliant. Like, what the hell was I thinking when I was a kid? Other than, oh, I was a dumb kid. But even with that like caveat, I just couldn't wrap my mind around like, how did this not click for me back in the day? Like, this is such a magical game and it's so fun and it's just so weird in like a good way. So like Link's Awakening always has that special place in my heart. It's being the first Zelda that I played for reals, and also the game that almost turned me off on the series forever. And honestly, if you've never played it and you don't want to wait for this remake, the original game holds up super well today. And it's on like the 3DS eShop, so you can get it. But this has like a 3D look, or it's got like the 3D HD style. It's somewhat similar to like the look of like A Link Between Worlds for 3DS or like Triforce Heroes, though Link looks almost like he kind of looks like a pop figure a little bit, just kind of like big, just solid black eyes, just looking really cute. But it looks super sharp. It looks like what you would like, just an HD remake version of that game. And I'm super psyched for this. I as much as I love Breath of the Wild, and I think Breath of the Wild is an absolute masterpiece, I was kind of thinking like, I'm sure they'll make another game like that, but I would like a kind of like classic style Zelda in between that. It's kind of like a palate cleanser. I never thought they would remake one of the old ones, but for them to go back and pick the best handheld one and give it a new coat of paint is fantastic. And if it's as well designed in terms of making smart choices to improve the original game and maybe eliminate any old annoyances in the way that the Resident Evil 2 remake has, then this could be something special. Though I have a lot of confidence in Nintendo to pull this off. They didn't really share much about like the actual gameplay or what those changes would be, if any. They just showed a trailer just showing clips of gameplay, and that they promised to share more throughout the year. But the game itself is launching sometime in 2019, so that makes this even better that I'm be playing a new Zelda game and one of my favorite Zelda games with a nice polished look sometime this year. That is super exciting. Big Zelda fan. And what a really cool surprise. Once again, no idea that this was even in the works. So I love when companies are able to surprise fans like this in an era where seemingly everything gets leaked in one form or another. It's always nice that when a company is able just to completely keep something under wraps and genuinely surprise players. So that wraps up the direct. Like I said, a really cool direct, some really cool stuff to come out of it. One of the most entertaining ones, I guess, they've done in a while. And all I can say is that it's a really exciting time to be a Switch owner between all of those announcements and then the stuff we already knew about, like Yoshi's Crafted World coming out. We got the new Animal Crossing this year. We got the big Pokemon RPG coming this year. Metroid Prime 4 in about 6 years. But I've loved my Switch, and I don't want to turn this into like a Switch commercial or anything like that. But after, the Wii U being kind of a letdown, even though there were some great games for it, but just being just overall kind of a letdown, and the Wii being good, but also being, like just motion controls not always being the best thing in the world, and all the shovelware that the Wii got. This is the most invested I had been in a Nintendo platform since the Super Nintendo for me. And I love that it has been as successful as it's been, and after just how just crap the Wii U's run was, because I had the Wii U from launch till the end, so I was there just the droughts between releases because the system had no third party support. To see the 180 that the Switch has done, where like everything seems to be rushing the gates to get on the Switch, it's super cool to me. I like that I genuinely have to think about if I want to play something on Switch or Xbox and PS4. Just part of that's probably me just having grown up a Nintendo kid, but it was hard not to watch that direct and just or even most directs since the Switch's launch. And just not smile, like just be happy. Like Nintendo always makes me feel a genuine kind of like innocence about video games that no other game maker can produce. It's just, there's just a magic about that company. As frustrated as they can make me sometimes about other policies and just things that they do with like online or what have you, they're still just I just have fun with Nintendo things in just a different kind of way than I do any other games. If that makes sense. I imagine that some of you that play a lot of Nintendo games probably feel a similar have similar feelings about the company or their titles. So I'm excited. I look at my Switch and I go like, "Oh yeah, we're going to be busy this year," as if we weren't busy already. So yeah, guys, that wraps up this direct. And up next, to take this show home, I'm just going to touch on the games that I've been playing this past week. What have I been playing? Or Apex Legends, of course. I got the name right the first time this week. Still a bad name, though. Still having fun with it, though not as much fun as I did the first week I had, mainly because I've been playing mostly with random people, which after playing with friends, it's kind of hard to go back to. You're just having that full cooperation and teamwork the first time, and then going to barely being able to communicate with some people. Granted, like I said, the waypoint system works really well, but it's just not the same. And I had some rough matches in terms of just matches ending super quick. The first couple times I had a few jump masters drop us right into the lion's den, so to speak, surrounded by enemies and getting offed within seconds of touching the ground. I had another where I played with two like really high level dudes, and I think they knew each other. They were both exactly the same level, which, I mean, that can happen, but it just seemed like they've been playing the game together for so long. And like as soon as we touched down, like I felt like the kid brother kind of tagging along, like they were just running around doing stuff and not really making much effort to include me in their game, just kind of like moving on and not really telling me anything. And I'm just kind of following them like, "Hey guys, remember me? I'm here too. I found a helmet. You guys want to know? Okay, it's level 1." So that wasn't fun. I got matched up one time with two people that did have a mic that also seemed to know each other, and that was a bit better because we were like actually communicating, so that was more fun. I guess it just serves that even with all the waypoints and stuff that the game has, being able to mark enemies and items, which works very well. You can't truly replace just good old fashioned voice chat, especially with people that are willing to listen to you. So this week in Apex was mostly defined by me getting my ass handed to me and not really having the best support system in terms of my teammates, but I'm looking forward to playing some more this week. I believe old Hologram Dream and I are going to be hopping in together. If you remember her from the Kingdom Hearts episodes, kind of got her on board with Apex, so she's going to give it a try for the first time with me. So depending on how it goes, let you know maybe how that goes down in the next episode. Other than that, I started playing Crackdown 1, which is currently free right now for Xbox. And I don't think you need like games with gold, or not games with gold, but rather you don't need an Xbox Live subscription, I don't believe, to play it. I mean, you would need to play online to do that stuff, but I think it's just available, like it's just free. And this is my first time playing that game. I missed out on it back in 2007, and I always meant to go back to it. I've had a physical copy of the game for years and years, and I even when Crackdown 3 had its false release dates, every time it kind of started creeping up, I took the game out of the box that it was in and kind of left it in front of my like entertainment center, which is what I'll do sometimes if I have a physical game that I want to get to, just so that it's a constant visual reminder of, hey, you should play this. But that did not work either. And I kind of liked that the game kept getting delayed in a way because it kept giving me more time to play Crackdown 1. But now I decided to say, screw it, I'm going to play it. And instead of playing the physical version I've had forever, I just downloaded it. So the disc is now back in its box and is currently being moved via forklift into its original position in the archives, next to the Ark of the Covenant, somewhere in that warehouse. But I have played probably the first, probably like 2.5 hour, not a half hour, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of Crackdown 1 so far. I've killed the first drug lord pretty quickly. I kind of went straight for him, honestly. And I'm having fun with it, though it's interesting to go back to a game that's 12 years old almost, and kind of seeing how open world sandbox games have evolved since then. Like so the shooting in that game is not great, and I wonder, and maybe if you're a Crackdown fan you can tell this to me, I wonder if that's by design, because I saw that you can improve the shooting accuracy if you I guess if you just keep shooting people. I believe that's how the level up system was explained. So I was like, is this like crappy on purpose because it gets better later on? Like if I murder 100 dudes, I'm going to be like Deadshot and just never miss. But the shooting doesn't feel great. The lock on sticks to enemies longer than I would like they'll be down dead and I'm still locked onto them, and I'm trying to like very desperately switch to the next target. But I definitely can see why people love the traversal stuff. Like I've already had a lot of fun just climbing buildings and jumping around and trying to find all the agility orbs I can see, of which there are a lot of them. And just the general chaos, like I'm just throwing grenades everywhere and blowing stuff up and like running over civilians as I'm trying to run over drug dealers. Basically being probably as big of a problem as the gangs, if not more so, in terms of just the chaos in Pacific City. And Pacific City is a pretty violent place. There's just every corner you turn, there's gangs rolling up and just shooting people or getting into shootouts with the agency. And it makes you wonder why anyone would choose to live there. Kind of like in most comic books where you're like, why would anyone want to live in Gotham City at this point? Given all the crap that goes down there, like, why? Same with Metropolis and any city that a major hero occupies. Like, something's always popping off, and eventually, just for your own safety, you would think you would leave. Otherwise, anything that happens to you is kind of maybe deserved, because you know what you're getting into. You know, if you move to New York City in the Marvel Universe, you will know no peace, at least not for very long. So that's kind of what Pacific City feels like as I'm driving around and hitting most of the people, not on purpose, but, they're kind of in the way. Just saying, they're in the way. They gotta look both ways crossing the street. Maybe just not ever go outside because you'll probably get shot by one of the 1,500 gangs. But I'm having a fun time with it. Like I said, I'm using my weight for my Xbox One X to kind of squeeze this in and get as much time with Crackdown 1 as I can so that I have a primer for Crackdown 3. And it just feels nice to finally scratch off a game that's in my backlog or has been for a long time. You probably know the feeling if you have like a backlog. I'm assuming that we all do. If you're like even a semi-serious gamer, you probably got like at least 1 or 2 games that you're kind of meaning to get to. And it's always nice to finally pop that disc in that you've just been staring you in the face and you've always told yourself one day, and to finally have that day come feels awesome, honestly. I'm still plugging away Resident Evil 2 Remake, still making my way through Claire's campaign. I just got Sherry Birkin, and I lost Sherry Birkin just this quickly. So I'm back on my own, but still having fun with that. Haven't played much Kingdom Hearts 3 just because I've been busy. I started a new job, actually. I am a new contributor for Screen Rant, writing gaming news. So if you want to read about the happenings in the video game world, you can head over there and maybe you can see my name talking about things like Jade appearing in Mortal Kombat. I believe that was the last article I wrote for them. And all that good information goodness. So that's just kind of transitioning into doing that. Just adjusting my schedule has kind of axed some of my free time, and I've also just been working a lot just this week in general. I have a day off today, which is very nice. It is very much needed. So I'm still pretty much where I was last week in Kingdom Hearts 3, still in the middle of Frozen. And I still have not watched that Frozen 2 trailer yet. I should really get to that. And let's see, like I mentioned before, I was playing Tetris 99 and Daemon X Machina. Still playing Tetris Effect, but steadily working my way through that journey mode. Still having a lot of fun with it. Though, my god, that game, man, when those blocks start just going rapid fire, I'm just like, you expect a human to play this? Though, as I've been doing, I've failed so many stages multiple times when it gets to those hard parts. And then it's kind of cool to kind of get better at it. Like, my eyes learn to adjust to the speed, and I'm able just to kind of cope with it. And I almost feel like a Dragon Ball Z character. Like, if I train hard enough, like, things that I couldn't see, like if I was seeing someone that was moving so fast, and then now I can detect them because I've been training. That's kind of what that feels like. Just just to feel extra nerdy. And in between all that, I've also, and I haven't mentioned this in the previous weeks, but in the last month or so, I have fallen back hard into Threes on mobile. And if you're not aware, Threes is a really, really cool mobile game that released, 2014? 2015? 2014 sounds right. Maybe even 2013. God. But it was designed by a guy named Asher Vollmer. And it's a really cool kind of like numbers matching game where you're pretty much like playing with tiles of it's 4x4 tiles, each with numbers that are divisibles of 3. And you're just trying to match them up. So 3 plus 3 equals 6, and then 6 plus 6 equals 12, and then going from there. And you're just trying to add tiles and avoid filling the board to where you don't have any more available moves. And it's a brilliant puzzle game. It was one of my absolute favorites the year that it launched. I played the crap out of it before I kind of fell off. And for the longest time, I had an itch for a good mobile game that I can play kind of one-handed and rapid fire. Because I've been playing other games on my phone, like Hidden Folks is one I firing up, and I love playing that. But I just wanted something that just something a bit more stimulating and active where I'm just swiping furiously. And Threes scratches that itch, so I reinstalled it and have fallen back in love with it very much. It's a great game to play, obviously when you're just waiting for something, but it's a fun game even for me when I just kind of wake up. Like I said with Tetris Effect a couple weeks ago, whenever it was, that it's a great game to wake your mind up to, get your brain working immediately, because I'm having to think about math as well as just positioning. And it just puts me in a state of bliss, in a way that a Tetris would, and that kind of puzzle game's satisfaction, for lack of a better term. So That's another hot recommendation, I guess, for a game that's like maybe 4 or 5 years old. Support it. I know it was at the time it came out, it was the victim of a lot of shameless clones that kind of hindered its impact in terms of sales. Namely, 2048, which got super big by being a very super clone of Threes. So if you're looking for a cool mobile game and you've never tried it, absolutely give it a shot. But that's about it. Relatively light week for that stuff. Business should pick up once I get my hands on Metro Exodus and Crackdown 3 this coming week. Excited to dive into those and tell you guys what I think about them in the next episode. So until then, thanks for listening, guys. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at MarcusStewart7. That's the number 7. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe, whether you're listening to the show on YouTube at the channel Marcus Makes Media or on SoundCloud. Again, Marcus Makes Media is where you'll find this show. Or if you're on iTunes, in which case you'd be looking at Marcus Writes About Games. Regardless, tell your friends, go to a mountaintop, scream into the high heavens, get on a big old, European horn and blow and sound the call, the clarion call. And like I mentioned before, you can find me on Screen Rant, writing gaming news there, if you want to follow my writing endeavors. And you can also find me on 2 Dungeons & Dragons podcasts. One is called We Wanted Adventurers, hosted by a former guest of this show, Jack Gardner, who is our dungeon master. And the other show is called Dragon Guard. Again, DM'd by Jack Gardner. Both shows are hilarious, just really goofy, kind of live plays of Dungeons & Dragons campaigns. And if you're into role-playing and just goofy, dysfunctional party stuff, be sure to check those shows out. You can find them on SoundCloud. I think it's under the Best Games Period podcast, which is the show that Jack co-hosts. And you can also find them on extralife.com as well as libsyn.com. Just search for We Wanted Adventurers or Dragon Guard at Libsyn. So, that said, let's take it home. Thank you for joining me on this episode. Goodbye.